Mother-in-laws and daughter-in-laws are strangers. We don't interact except at weddings and funerals.
Dale, my daughter's fiancé, said with a smile during the family meeting for her wedding.
What do you mean by that, Dale?
In your family and mine, we live in different worlds.
Dale suddenly raised his voice at Mimi.
That's right, Mimi.
Mother-in-law?
I was actually against welcoming you as a wife.
Misty, Dale's mother, began with a weary tone. Mimi seemed shocked.
I only agreed to this marriage because Dale insisted.
You're right, Mom. We can't depend on Mimi for financial support. They're poor.
Mimi was dumbfounded. My husband furrowed his brows, looking puzzled.
Understood?
Mom?
Mimi looked at me as if questioning my response.
We'll also maintain our distance as strangers. Not just at weddings and funerals. We won't interact at all.
I stated firmly. My name is Elise, 61 years old, nearing retirement age. I used to work for a major company, but now run a small business with my husband Tyler, a former colleague. We're thriving and it's reassuring to work together. Our daughter Mimi is our beloved only child. Busy with work, we could only spend rare days off with her. Sometimes I had to multitask with work calls even then. Yet Mimi always clung to me since she was little. When I was down about a mistake at work, she would pat my head with her small hands, asking, "Are you okay, Mom?"
Although busy, I'm grateful she grew up to be a considerate and kind child.
After Mimi started working, she introduced us to Dale. My first impression of Dale was of a refreshing, good-natured young man. He and Mimi worked at the same company, in a supervisor-subordinate relationship. They started dating after he encouraged her through a work mistake. Dale was a handsome, modern-looking young man. He came to greet us in a suit, which was formal but somehow stylish. His way of speaking was fine too. He gave the impression of being considerate, asking things like, "How do Elise and Tyler usually spend their weekends?"
I've decided to get married.
One day out of the blue, Mimi announced, "The guy she's talking about is Dale, who she introduced recently." My husband and I were quite surprised by the sudden news. It was unexpected because Dale didn't mention marriage during his last visit. Back then, Mimi only said they were considering their future, so this sudden development left us baffled.
At first I thought it was too soon for marriage. We've been dating for just about a year. But Dale kept saying, "Let's get married," after 6 months of dating. And I felt so needed.
It seemed she was won over by Dale's persistence. Yet, while saying this, Mimi looked genuinely happy with a bright smile. My husband also seemed thrilled, saying, "I've always dreamed of going fishing with my son-in-law," his joy visibly apparent. However, one thing bothered me. Dale hadn't been in touch for a while after that. I thought if he really wanted to marry Mimi, he should have come to greet us right away. When my husband proposed to me, he immediately discussed visiting my parents and came in a neatly tailored suit. But Dale hadn't done anything like that. I wondered, is this how all young people are these days?
By the way, Elise and Tyler, where do you work?
Dale asked today, as he came with Mimi for the first time in a while to report about their marriage. It seems Mimi had asked Dale to report their marriage to us parents. In the middle of our casual conversation, Dale suddenly inquired.
We run our own business, so we're not employed by anyone.
I answered without any trouble.
Does that mean you're the boss? Wow, that's impressive.
Dale seemed a bit surprised.
No, it's nothing grand. We're not running a company, just doing some small work on our own, I modestly replied.
Does that mean you don't have any other employees?
Dale looked even more astonished.
Yeah, it's just the two of us handling small-scale work, I said.
Suddenly, Dale's expression turned sly and slightly malicious.
Wow, that must be tough. Can you even make a decent living with that?
Dale's change in demeanor surprised me. Not just me, but my husband and Mimi were also taken aback.
We managed to make enough to not struggle with our basic needs, I answered calmly, though surprised.
No way. Making ends meet through small-scale work must be tough. Wouldn't it be better to get a proper job at a company?
Hey, Dale.
Mimi interjected, looking startled.
No, Mimi, you should understand this too. Being employed at a proper company and becoming a high-income earner like me or my dad, that's normal, Dale said, looking smug.
That's not true. Any job can be great if you take pride in it. Being a company employee isn't everything.
Well, Mimi, being raised by Elise and Tyler who run a small business, this might be hard for you to understand. Sorry, Dale said, laughing it off.
My husband frowned, and Mimi kept apologizing with a guilty face. I felt quite upset by Dale's attitude. Then, on the day of the family meeting for the wedding, we met Dale again, who hadn't apologized since his disrespectful marriage announcement. No apologies came through Mimi either.
Mom, Dad, I'm really sorry, Mimi said, looking pained at the entrance of the restaurant where the family meeting was held.
But Dale and his mother Misty stood next to her, smirking without a hint of apology. In contrast, Dale's father Dom was silent, almost invisible.
Thank you for your time today, Mimi politely thanked Dale's parents.
No problem, Dale insisted. You should be thanking us, Misty said with a nasty smile, making Mimi's face tense. Misty's condescending attitude was clearly off-putting. The meal as a family began. Mimi tried to initiate conversation, but Dale only gave vague responses. Misty laughed in a way that seemed to look down on us. Then Dale suddenly said, "Mother-in-laws and daughter-in-laws are strangers. We don't interact except at weddings and funerals."
What do you mean, Dale? Mimi asked in shock.
Dale raised his voice at Mimi.
That's right, Mimi. Mother-in-law? I was actually against welcoming you as a wife. Misty started sounding resigned.
What? Mimi seemed deeply shocked.
Dale insisted on the marriage, so I reluctantly gave my permission, Misty, Dale's mother, said. That's right. Mimi's family is poor, so it would be troublesome if they relied on us financially, Dale added. Elise and Tyler run a small, unstable business, right? My family is different. My dad has a high-ranking position in a top-tier company, and honestly, we're not struggling with money, Dale continued, while his mother laughed along.
Your family and ours are different. Even if you marry Dale for his money, don't expect us to take care of your family's financial problems. You should be grateful we even allowed this marriage, Misty said.
Such a thing. Mimi stood dumbfounded, her face turning pale.
I said quietly,
Mom? Mimi looked at me, her eyes brimming with tears, on the verge of crying.
"We'll also maintain our distance, not just at weddings and funerals, but in all matters. We'd prefer if you also refrain from involving yourself with our family in the future," I said firmly.
Of course, I don't want to be associated with bottom-tier jobs like Elise and Tyler's, Dale said, laughing as if it was obvious.
Oh, Dale. You shouldn't say the truth like that, Misty laughed, looking at Dale.
Mom? A tear rolled down Mimi's cheek.
Today was the wedding day. I had repeatedly advised Mimi to call off the wedding, but she refused, and her reason was shocking, I said.
Dale is threatening me. I want to continue at my current job, but Dale said if I break off the engagement, he'll spread lies about me at work, Mimi said, realizing Dale's true colors. He was not only Mimi's superior, but also highly trusted by others. He seemed to be wearing multiple masks of deception. Apparently, he was popular with women, and his colleagues envied his marriage. But that was only until today. Today, I planned to bring Dale down to rock bottom. The wedding ceremony went smoothly, and it was time for the reception to begin. Mimi entered with Dale, her smile strained. She seemed to be forcing herself, and my husband looked worriedly at her. Oblivious to Mimi's struggle, Dale was waving cheerfully at the company executives, colleagues, and subordinates he invited to the reception. Then the moment finally arrived.
Now we will have a toast by the bride's mother, Elise.
Applause erupted instantly. Dale and Mimi's colleagues from their company clapped, smiling at us.
Thank you for gathering here today, as the mother of the bride and the co-owner of a law firm. Yes, I actually run a law firm with my husband. Originally, I held a position in a major law corporation, but I decided to start my own firm to do things my way. It turned out to be a great success. Though we handle fewer cases as a duo, we have many high-profile clients, including listed and famous companies, thanks to referrals from my previous firm. In fact, I had some connections with executives from Dale and Mimi's company due to my past job. That's why I had explained the situation to the company's executives in advance and invited them to the reception.
When I mentioned being a lawyer, Dale was visibly shocked, likely because it was not the job he expected.
Upon hearing that my husband and I were lawyers, Misty, recalling her previous rude behavior, looked pale.
Then the entertainment segment began. We planned to show a video, and I had already informed the reception staff about it. I specialize in cases involving victims of infidelity. Due to my profession, I always make sure to record anything significant for potential evidence. Of course, the video that played was from the family meeting day.
Of course, I don't want to be associated with bottom-tier jobs like Elise and Tyler's.
Oh, Dale, you shouldn't say the truth like that.
Dale's laughter and his mother's loud guffaws played in the video. Contrasting the video, Dale yelled, "What's this about? Mimi, stop it now."
Misty was desperately trying to cover up, telling Dale's relatives it was just a joke, merely part of the entertainment.
My husband commented loudly,
Husband commented loudly, amazing how they think that's entertainment, making Misty turn from pale to white. The condescending remarks they made about us blasted through the speakers, embarrassing Dale and his mother. I also had footage of Dale visiting hotels with women other than Mimi, which I played next. A detective who works with our law firm had helped gather this evidence. Dale, apparently not satisfied with just Mimi, was seen with various women. Given his good looks, he had no trouble with his escapades. The video showed different women each time, indicating numerous affairs. Some of the footage was definitely not suitable for a wedding reception, eliciting screams of shock and confusion, especially from the female colleagues at his company. Eventually, the reception was abruptly called off. With his true character and infidelity exposed, Dale's social standing was undoubtedly ruined. Moreover, not only colleagues, but also the upper management of his company were present, including some from human resources. One of the executives, as he was leaving, sternly told Dale, "I'm disappointed in you. We will discuss this matter in a company meeting. Be prepared for the consequences regarding your future in the company." Dale, turning pale, weakly replied yes. It seemed Dale's mother had fainted midway through the ordeal. The reception hall buzzed with whispers and stares at the two of them. Dale's relatives were quietly discussing how to handle the situation. I overheard someone muttering, "Just like his mother, Dale has the worst personality." It appeared that Dale's misconduct wasn't entirely hidden from his relatives. None of Mimi's colleagues even tried to make eye contact with Dale. Some of Dale's batchmates, whom he had invited, looked at him with contempt and quietly left the reception early. Dale, who had been popular until then, often received Valentine's chocolates and coffee from female colleagues, apparently treated quite favorably. But now the situation had changed. The women at the reception viewed Dale as an enemy, and one particularly influential woman among them seemed ready to get involved with Dale, but in a negative way. As expected, Mimi and Dale's marriage was called off. Since they planned to register the marriage after the ceremony, Mimi's family registry remained untarnished. Given Dale's affairs during their relationship, we decided to demand a substantial sum for damages, including wedding expenses. It was a small price to pay considering Mimi's feelings. According to the detective I know, Dale had spent most of his savings on his affairs, leaving him with little for the compensation. He would struggle to arrange the settlement. Triggered by the incident, Dale's parents apparently divorced. His father had quietly visited my husband and me before the wedding, apologizing for the family meeting day and hinting at a divorce. We had given him some heartfelt advice. Initially, Dale's father approached us, unaware that my husband and I were lawyers, saying, "I'm thinking of divorcing my wife." He seemed quite surprised when he found out about our profession. He was evidently troubled by Dale's arrogance, his mother's nasty nature, and her extravagant spending habits. We had a thorough conversation with Dale's father before the reception, agreeing to keep our professions and the entire plan a secret. Eventually, Dale's mother's flamboyant spending on hosts and designer bags, leading to a near-penniless state, became the final straw in their divorce. According to Dale's father, they had almost depleted their savings, so the divorce was somewhat inevitable. Now, Dale and his mother are living together, and rumor has it they're constantly quarreling. Dale was demoted and transferred to a remote branch office with only one employee, a decision made immediately after the reception. When I spoke to the executives at Dale's company who helped us, it turned out that Dale's new location is typically what's referred to as a layoff room. Dale repeatedly called me after his transfer, apparently realizing that I had connections with the company executives and could potentially influence his career.
You are actually amazing people, right? If only you had told me earlier that you were doing such respectable jobs, I wouldn't have acted that way. Isn't this partly your fault too? Please, talk to the executives so I can get a promotion.
Dale, remember what you said? Mother-in-laws and daughter-in-laws are strangers. We don't interact except at weddings and funerals. You and your mother are now complete strangers to us. Whatever happens to you is none of our concern.
I also warned him that if he continued to call, I would involve the police. It's puzzling how someone with such a delusional mindset, like Dale, could have been so well regarded. Even with a good-looking face, his other qualities were far too negative. He must have deceived everyone with his charming smile. Mimi was ambushed several times by Dale before his transfer, begging her to reconsider their relationship. Despite his deep apologies, Mimi elegantly ignored him. After being treated so horribly, it's only natural she wouldn't want anything to do with him. Repeatedly, Dale's mother also called and wrote letters saying, "Please reconsider with Dale." Desperate because her only source of income was her beloved son, she was relentless. Of course, we firmly refused any contact with Dale's mother. Regarding the phone calls, my husband firmly said, "Could you please not rely on our family? After all, we are complete strangers to you."
Besides, since you think of us as poor, you shouldn't need our help, right?
He then forcefully hung up the receiver. He also tore up the letters, clearly very upset by the whole situation. Of course, we consulted with the executives of Dale and Mimi's company about this matter. They assured us they would handle it well, which was a relief. Dale's situation might become worse than just being relegated to a layoff room. He's completely off the elite track now, and it's even uncertain if he can stay in the company at all. Well, it's all a result of his own actions. As long as he can earn enough to cover the compensation, that's all that matters. Mimi went through a lot, but she eventually recovered. Perhaps because of what happened, her colleagues were sympathetic and supportive. Having connections with the company's executives through me also seemed to play a significant role. The executives regularly checked in on Mimi, so she didn't face any bad rumors or defamation at work. Being diligent at her job, Mimi is considered a promising employee and a promotion isn't out of reach. 5 years have passed since then. After the incident, Mimi fell in love with someone she met through a business deal and eventually married. Now, she's the mother of a lovely 3-year-old boy and a 1-year-old girl. Her husband, not only serious and devoted but also more handsome than Dale, is a doting father always looking after the kids. Mimi often brings her children over, and my husband and I love spending time with our grandchildren. We also have a good relationship with her husband's parents, and frequent family meetings are held. Looking ahead, I plan to lead a busy but fulfilling life, balancing work and family time with my grandchildren.